Welcome to my top 10 list. I am the Madman from The Madness and the Madman. We're going to go through some of the details of my favorite albums here. Of course, this is my opinion. It's not the opinion of, anybody else. It is just my opinion. So if you don't agree with me, just leave your favorite albums in the comments section so other people can check them out. Because there was a lot of great albums, but I had to slim it down. There just wasn't enough room on the top 10 list to include everybody's favorite album. Anyways, enjoy the list, and here we go. Alright, coming in at number 10 on the list is Electric Messiah. Electric Messiah came out in 2018, of course, and, if you're not familiar with High on Fire, Matt Pike is the guitar player for High on Fire. He's one of the guys who kind of started the whole sludge metal, a little doom revolution, and has now pretty much caught fire, and everybody and their fucking mom is trying to do it. He does it the best. I'm sorry. All you guys are out there copycatting. Guess what? He does it the fucking best, and there's just no way to deny that. Sleep also came out with a record. It did not make the list for me, as Sleep is a little too droney and atmospheric for my tastes. Nothing wrong with it, but I preferred High on Fire, and that's why they are in this list here. If I had to give some strengths, one of the big strengths is, of course, his riffing. His voice, it's absolutely unmistakable. You can't possibly think it's anybody else. The production is dirty and filthy and just classic sludge, which you'd expect to hear from him. Some people are going to consider that a weakness, but I do consider that a strength. My only caveat that I really didn't care for in the album was the solos were a bit wanky. He does do this quite often, though, in High on Fire and in Sleep, so I can't complain too much, but this is, I wish there was a little bit more melody and a little less chromatic, bluesy nonsense, which just didn't do anything for me. But that's why they made number 10 on the list. It's still an awesome album. Go check it out. Number 9 on the list was Revocation, The Outer Ones. The Outer Ones was an album that's kind of a return to form. Brought Revocation back to what they do best. They're fucking heavy as shit, and they're technical as shit. And I thought that this was a great representation of that. Of course, the strengths of the album is technical ability, musical variety, while still being very heavy. The solo writing for Revocation has always been on another level. A lot of tech death bands just can't even compete with David Davidson. He's just an amazing solo writer, like one of the best out there as of right now, in my opinion. There's lots of captivating grooves, and the riff writing is, of course, exceptional as always. My only caveat that I would have to say, because you got to pick a weakness, I'm not just going to sit here and kiss everybody's ass, is the vocal variety is a little weak in Revocation. Always has been. I think that's what they were trying to expand on with Deathless, but it just fell short for me. It just didn't make a lot of sense, didn't fit. All the pitched shouts, they weren't Revocation to me. This feels much more like Revocation, and I would prefer they put out albums like this, and maybe if you're going to try to do something for the vocal variety, maybe not try to do something like that, but try to do maybe other kinds of screams and things. But yes, it was a fucking good record, and I recommend everybody check it out, of course. It's why it's number 9 on my top 10 list.
It comes from the heavens. It brought with it light. Like gravity in the soil, feeding on fire and glory. Prophets blowing me in your right. Lost my day, I'm mentioned by something waste. My weapon was the will of your chaos. That gave birth to this taste. Withering on the vine.
Alright, coming in at number 8 is Ghost Prequel. Ghost has kind of been a band that snuck up on me that I really... First time I heard Ghost, I didn't really care for it. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I thought it was kind of lame, to be perfectly, frank about it. But I'll be honest, it grew on me, man. It just fucking grew on me. The catchy melodies, the great... songwriting, which is really what they're immensely talented at, is the songwriting. They're not technicians by any means, but they are amazing songwriters, and they have a great vibe with layers. I think they do a great job with that and making sure that a song breathes. This album has all of that. So it is definitely an album I would check out if that is your thing. It's not for everybody, as it is kind of poppy, so that's something that not everybody's going to enjoy. But I personally thought it was great. Even the most poppy songs on the record still sounded like Ghost to me. They didn't sound like Britney Spears or anything like that. So yeah, they did a great fucking job. That's why it made number 8 on my list. The reason it didn't get any higher is only the technicability. Their technical ability just isn't there as far as what I would want from a band that I put in my top 5. We need somebody who's got a little bit more burn in their fingers. It's not that they don't have plenty of groove, because they have amazing grooves and amazing songwriting, like I said, and great melodies. But for me, you need all that and then a bag of chips. So that's why they made number 8 on the list. Alright, number 7 on the list is Psychroptic As the Kingdom Drowns. Okay, the title track from this album is fucking awesome. They brought in some operatic style singing from a female vocalist, and it sounds great. The riffs for Psychroptic have always been on another level for me. I listened to a lot of other tech death bands, and Psychroptic really is the only one that has that crazy legato sound, where they go in and out of these grooves and into these thrashy death parts, but it's always got a little melody, and it's always uber fast. So, and there's groove. There's always groove. They almost never have a non-groovy section. If they do, one's coming. The vocal variety is great. They got highs, lows, mids, and now they actually have some singing in it, which is pretty fucking cool. The only weakness that I could really come back with them on is, perhaps it's just the fact that this is Psychroptic, and it is the same stuff they've been doing for 3 or 4 albums now, ever since Observant, excuse me. But yes, I mean, some people aren't going to like it. Some people are going to like it. I thought it was enough to make my list, and I thought that the riffs were good enough to really keep me going, as they have some of the coolest riffs in all of death metal, let alone tech death. So that's why they made number 7 on my list. All right, coming in at number 6, we have Garad Aethera, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly. It's spelled Aethra. I don't know what the fuck it means. I couldn't fucking tell you. But yes, I listened to the first Garad record a while back, and then I listened to the follow-up, and both were fucking sensational melodic tech death. There's going to be a little bit of tech death on here because tech death is really pushing the boundaries. They're doing some new shit, and I like it. It's nice to hear guys who are crazy technical still want to write real songs and not just show off the whole time. And I think Garad does that on this album. They've kind of reminded me of akin to like a Protest the Hero if they played tech death. There's a lot of just jumping all over the fretboard, interesting tapping sections, very melodic, yet it still is tech death. It's still fucking heavy. The only weakness that, you could maybe, cite it for is it might be too jumpy for some people. There might be too much changes, too many weird sections. Like I said, it's very prog influenced, and you can definitely fucking hear that. But on this album, they definitely changed it up a little bit more. There's more vocal variety. We've got yelling, spoken word, Gojira style, like pitch screams, as well as all the death metal style. So yeah, it's got a little bit of everything for everyone who likes extreme metal. So I would definitely check out Garage Aethera. That's why it's number 6 on my list.
My Lord, my fair Lord, great God who has built the creatures. Oh my fair Lord, may your power obliterate the monster is God of the great gods. My head is yours, we are here to serve. May your greatness put an end to a curse once and for all. Supposed to be the king's words. Get off things that cannot be explained.
All right, coming in at number 5 here. This is a band that I bet a lot of people would want on their top 10 or even in the top 3 list, but I scooted it down a little bit, and I'll explain kind of why. It's called Beyond Creation is the band, and the album is Algorithm. And while this album is fucking amazing, especially that intro track just blew me away. It really set it apart from most tech death. It still sounds a lot like other bands. I mean, I'll get into that a little bit more. I mean, it's very melodic. It's very technical. Has a great all-encompassing feel of all extreme metal at the time. Lots of progressive, lots of great solos. It's definitely changing the boundaries. You even hear some gent sections in it. But what I would say is that it's really long, which has always been a pet peeve of mine. If you write a record that's over an hour, you're getting greedy with my time, because I have to now break it into 2 parts to listen to the whole thing, because my ears get tired. I don't know if I'm just getting old or whatever it is, but my ears do get tired listening to really, really heavy-ass metal for long periods of time. But that's not my only complaint. The other complaint I would make about Beyond Creation is that they're great. They're great at all kinds of things, but the also problem is that I hear shifts in what they're great at. So sometimes I'll hear Black Dahlia style riffing, and other times I'll hear Animals as Leaders style riffing, and then other times I'll hear Dying Fetus style riffing, and they're great at taking pieces from other bands and putting them in their music, and I think that there's definitely something new that comes out of that, but in the same fact, it is still kind of like taking little pieces of other bands' essence and putting them in there. Another band that comes to mind that they kind of mimicked a little bit was the Faceless. Now, I'm not trying to say that Beyond Creation is a bad band. Beyond Creation is fucking awesome, and like I said, they're number 5 on the list. They're not low. I mean, there was at least 30 albums that were great on this fucking whole 2018 year, but they were number 5 because they were that good for me. So definitely check out Beyond Creation's Algorithm. All right, now we are down to number 4 on my list for 2018. This is a band that I absolutely adore and have been a big fan of. To be honest with you, I didn't find them until like 2 or 3 years ago, but when they came out with this album, I was just like, whoa, this is what they were missing. So number 4 is Jungle Rot. It's a self-titled album. Jungle Rot is an old school death metal band. It's been around for a very long time. I want to say mid 2000s, maybe even earlier than that. They're that old school style of death metal that has that heavy thrash influence still, and it's not just it's not Cannibal Corpse. It's way more groove driven, way more catchy hooky riffs. It's an amazing band, and I would definitely recommend anybody check out any of their albums, because if you like this one, you're probably going to like any of the other ones, because they're all in line. Now, that could be a complaint of some people, is like, oh, they keep coming out with the same album. But to me, that's what a band does. If that's your sound, stick with your sound. Oh, excuse me, had to burp. That's your sound, stick with your sound. Don't waste your sound. Your sound is supposed to be your own voice, your own thing. You're supposed to stick out in a crowd. You're not supposed to blend in because everybody else is doing something else or trying to be different. If you're already different, what are you trying to do? It's like Meshuggah. If Meshuggah came out with an album where they're singing, I'd be like, what in the fuck is this? This makes no goddamn sense. Strengths of the album, of course, it's same old jungle rap. This is a strength and a weakness to some people. It just depends on who you are. It's groove-driven thrash with old school death metal elements. Vocals are the same bark as always. Great solos on this record. Very old school thrash in styling, and the production on this record is fucking sensational. It's an amazing production. Some of the weaknesses, like I said, the same old stuff that they've always done, so either you love it or you hate it, but that's the only weakness I can really find in this record. The vocal variety is there, man. They have highs and lows, and it fits perfectly with the music that they're creating. So check out number 4, Jungle Rot. If you haven't listened to it yet, give it a listen, as it was a fucking awesome record for me.
Psychological warfare is a gun to the abilities. Will we now wake up to this cold reality? The regulations entwined in this trade, totalitarian autocracy. Murder, leader, as we point the finger. No peace, no world, reduced to a burning cinder.
All right. Number 3 on the list is Monstrosity, The Passage of Existence. They're like a groove-driven, old-school death metal style sound. Very in key with the band Death. I mean, that's really what this reminded me of. It felt like a Death album almost, because it has just the right amount of melody, just the right amount of catchy riffs, and it's not overly technical. It's not trying to be the most impressive band out there. You know, they're not playing bazillion miles an hour all the time. They put it in the right places, and I think they do a great job with that. There's absolutely no wanking in this album. I mean, all of the guitar lines are perfectly placed. All the lead playing is perfectly placed. It's great phrasing. It's great melody. They do a great job with all of that. The album art is my favorite on the list. I think it's the fucking awesome album art. I didn't know that they had so many lineup changes, because to be honest with you, I was not very familiar with Monstrosity till this record. This is the first one that I've ever heard from them, and I was just impressed with it because of how it sounded. The only thing I could say that might be a weakness, and this is not a weakness for me, but it could be considered a weakness from a devil's advocate standpoint, would be that a lot of it's been done before. Okay, it's definitely been done before, because this is, of course, old school death metal mixed with a little bit of modern death metal, and that's not uncommon now. There's another band called Gruesome that does that as well, but I thought that these guys did it really, really well, and I truly enjoyed it, and I find myself going back and listening to it over and over again. I mean, this is, like I said, it's number 3 on the list because I listen to it all the time, because I'd be bored of whatever I was checking out, and I'd go back to Monstrosity if I wanted to hear some fucking, old school style death metal with awesome production. So that's why they're number 3 on my list.
Within the spreading sphere, the realm, the specter of fear.
Number 2 on the list is going to surprise a lot of people, because up to this point, we've only had one band that really isn't crazy heavy, and that would be Ghost. But this band is not that heavy. I mean, it's not tech death by any means. It's Parkway Drive, and the album is Reverence. And this album is number 2 on my list because I've listened to it a fucking shitload, and I just find myself keep going back to it because it has catchy riffs, catchy melodies, catchy vocals. I mean, it's expertly written from a songwriter's standpoint. It's absolutely awesome. And this band has something that a lot of the other bands on the list maybe didn't do as well, and that's dynamics, with the exception of Ghost. Dynamics is something that I don't talk about a lot, and I don't think I've done any other videos about it, but I'll give you a quick rundown of what I think of dynamics. What I think of dynamics. Dynamics are incredibly important. Dynamics is what makes a song breathe. The song should break down and build itself back up. Death metal bands don't do this at all. I mean, occasionally you'll get an intro track that does it. You might see an intro to a song that gets you up and running, and then you're running full tilt the rest of the fucking song. In this realm, it's more of a rock trait, to be honest with you. So rock music always has that. I think that's some of the poppy things that people don't like. I would argue that if done properly in metal, it actually adds something to metal that people just don't do, that would bring more people into metal. And to be honest with you, we need that. We need more people listening to metal, right? They don't all need to listen to death, and they don't all need to listen to Cannibal Corpse, but we do need people to keep coming and listening to metal. I don't want to lose out to the trap and electronic community because, you know, we're afraid to try to maybe incorporate some of the things that pop artists and, you know, rock artists do. And that's what I think Parkway Drive did in this record. I mean, I think they did a great job. And they do it in a lot of their records, but in this one, they took it to an extreme next level. Like I said, the dynamics of songwriting, the lyrics, the production. The production on this record is the best on the list. There's nobody who even fucking comes close. So the production on this is sensational. It couldn't be any more polished and tight and punchy. And if you listen to this on a good system, it sounds fucking incredible. The only weakness, I would say, and you know, we kind of talked about how I don't think this is a weakness, but I do think that this is an argument to be made, is that they're familiar formulas. You know, there's verses and there's choruses and there's pre-choruses, and then, you know, there's an outro or a breakdown. I mean, it's very predictable music, which I don't see anything wrong with, but some people are definitely going to find that as a weakness. But, you know, if this is not your thing, if you're not into this kind of stuff, you don't have to like that this is number 2 on my list, but it is something that I would still recommend that you check out. Not to use it as this is a great record or an example, but if you're a musician, to use some of these tactics in your songwriting, not all the time, but maybe take a song and try to write a death metal song with these kinds of characteristics and see what happens, because that's really what changes and increases the mold. You know, like makes us sound more like we're pushing forward and not just stuck in the same speed trap that, you know, I would argue that there's been for technical death metal for probably about 15, 20 years now at this point, ever since it started popping up. Anyways, guys, that's why it's number 2 on my list. Check it out. It's Parkway Drive Reverence.
Deliver us from the blackness of us. Deliver us, justice for the Lord. Straight down, I see their wings are burning. But it's a shallow fall. Straight down, I see their wings are burning. There are no halos to be found.
Number 1 on the list, my favorite album of 2018, is Necrogoblicon's Welcome to the Bonkers. You know, we just went through Parkway Drive and what I thought about poppy, memorable stuff. Catchy, hooky riffs. Necrogoblicon does all of that, but also is heavy as fuck at times. And I think that that's a big reason why I think I liked Necrogoblicon's album so much. It's so unique, and it's not as serious. You know, like every band on this whole list, with the exception of maybe Ghost, is uber serious. Necrogoblikon is not serious at all. It's, I mean, they were making fun of previous albums in critiques of the album, saying that it was a joke band. And who cares if it's a joke band? Who cares? Are we like some sort of fucking black sock wearing, like, I'm a tough guy. All metal has to be awesome. Has to be angry. No, I mean, come on, guys. I mean, great music is great music, and it doesn't matter. I mean, there's nothing angry about fucking power metal, okay? But power metal is metal nonetheless. This band encompasses melodic death metal, power metal, electronic music, which I fucking don't like electronic music, but they do a great job incorporating it in their songs. We have ballads. It's a crazy unique album, and that's why I put it so high on the list. That's why it's number one, is because it's literally, I think it's gonna spawn a whole new genre of music. And I've been thinking about this genre for a while now, because what I do, in my solo project, The Madness and the Madman, is try to do what my favorite bands did, which was, I would say some of my favorite bands are Deathclock, Guar, Devin Townsend. I mean, these are bands and artists, or whatever you want to call them, that were less serious in their songwriting, as far as like, it's got to be personal experience. It can be a theme. It can be a theme, and it can be kind of kooky and colorful and funny, and it's okay, because I think Deathclock is such a prime example of how awesome it can sound when you're not as serious and you're not as technical, when you're actually trying to bring in melody and poppy hooks and things like that. And follow some sort of thematic element. This is almost like thematic metal, I guess is the best way to put it. So I would definitely check this out. I'm going to go through some of the strengths. I already listed some of them, and I'm going to run through them real fast here. I think it's very memorable, very unique. It has eclectic music, from death metal to power metal to classical to even carny music. The vocal variety on this album is also better than any other album on here. I mean, we've got highs, lows, mids. You've got singing. You've got everything you'd want here. There's whispers. There's these weird times where he's like repeating the same word in almost like a trance type thing, and it sounds really good because it's still like in his black metal voice, which I think is awesome. The only weaknesses that I could even like pin on this album at all would be what I would think most people would critique it on, and they would say it's just too cheesy. It's too thematic for some people. And the production, on this record, it's not as good as Parkway Drive. It's not as good as some of the death metal records. It is a little thinner than some of them are. But I think the songwriting is sensational and on another level. And for some people, when he starts singing, that singing voice is going to fuck with you because it's cheesy. I think we need to understand that it's supposed to be, but it's cheesy. And, it doesn't mean it sounds bad. It sounds different. And that's another thing that makes this band so unique, is the moment Necrogoblikon starts playing, I know who it is. There's no fucking confusion. I mean, if I listen to Monstrosity, it might take me a couple minutes. I might have to pick out a riff. The vocals aren't going to fucking tell me shit. Or not the vocals, but the vocals, they're not going to, they're not going to take me. They're not going to tell me what's going on. There's no way I'm going to find out what band that is by the vocals. And even some of the riffs. I mean, there's got to be a specific riff from a specific song that I recognize. It's going to make me decide that that's Monstrosity and not some other old school death metal band. And that's what's crazy about Necrogoblikon. It's its own thing. And I think that's what we need to do in music, and that's why it's number one on my list here. Alright, so that is my top 10 list of 2018. These are my favorite metal albums here. Thanks for staying tuned. It's a very long video. I just wanted to make sure that I gave good explanations for what everything was. I'm going to make a shorter version of the video, just going to run through them real fast so you guys can all just, if you want to just buzz through it, you can definitely do that. There's a link to my favorite songs and to that video in the description. As far as notable mentions, let's get to this because there's going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, you didn't list my favorite band, blah, 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 blah. Might be in this list here. So one of the notable mentions here I'm going to go through is Wolfheart, Constellation of Black Light. It was a great record. Had a lot of variety, had like this weird melodic death metal meets, more orchestral metal. Very cool record. Definitely recommend checking it out. Just didn't make the list. Rivers of Nile. Where Owls Know My Name. I mean, I think this is on pretty much everybody's list other than mine. My problem with it was too drony, man. It's just too drony and too atmospheric. And, to be honest with you, I just don't, it doesn't take a lot of talent. I'm a songwriter and it didn't do it for me. I mean, I get the sax, I get them still making it heavy and the riffs are fucking cool. The vocals are pretty cool. But I don't enjoy the atmospheric stuff unless it's done in a certain way, and I just didn't enjoy it as much as other people did. Still a good album, still recommend it, but it didn't make the top 10 list for that reason. Monuments, Forenesis, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, I have no fucking idea. The reason this didn't make this list is because it sounded like fucking Periphery to me. Sorry, it sounded like Periphery. I don't know who came first, but I heard Periphery first, and I just, it was a good record. There's nothing wrong with it. It sounded like another band, so I could not possibly put it on my list. Because once again, one of the big things I'm looking for is how unique they are and how influential they are. And I would not put Monuments in that category as I've already heard Periphery, and I'm pretty sure Periphery started that sound, and Monuments is just copying it. Anyways, next band on the list is Horrendous Idol. Horrendous is another band that I thought was fucking awesome. I thought the album was great, and I thought it was a great throwback to old school death metal. But what I would mention is it sounds the most like old school death metal and less like modern metal out of all of them. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't make the list, was because of, the vocal delivery was that of exact old school death metal. It almost sounded like it could have been a Morbid Angel record. I mean, it was in that realm, and I couldn't put it in the top 10 list just because of the uniqueness. Once again, great record. Still recommend, if you like that kind of music, checking that fucking band out because it's an awesome record. But yeah, it didn't do it for me. Oh, burps. Here we go. The next band on the list is Behemoth. I Loved You at Your Darkest. This one could have definitely made the list. There was just other bands that I thought came out with a better record, but I do think Behemoth, I Loved You at Your Darkest was, if I give it a number 11, that's what it would be. It'd be number 11. It was fucking incredible. If you haven't heard Behemoth, check it out. It's black and death metal. It sounds great. Has very just the atmosphere in Behemoth fits perfectly, and it's not boring to me in any way. And we have Dimmu Borgir. I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of these names, properly. Ionian or Eonian, I don't know. Enonin? I'm probably mispronouncing that. But anyways, it was a decent record. It just, I heard Flesh God Apocalypse, and then I heard Dimmu. So, I mean, I like Flesh God, and Dimmu is kind of like a not as good version to me. And that's why it wasn't going to make the list. I mean, it was okay. It was fine, but it wasn't for me. Immortal Northern Chaos Gods was fucking awesome. I thought that was a great record. I totally loved that Immortal kind of went, back and maybe made it more riffy, and it was great. I mean, I thought it was a great record. Didn't make the list just because there was other bands that I thought were just more unique in their sound. Now, although Immortal back in the day was definitely its own thing. The Ocean, Phanerozoic, I don't even know. Some of these names, like these album titles. I mean, if I have to Google your fucking album title, I'm probably not going to look at your lyrics because this sounds like a lot of fucking work. I'm not trying to study. I don't want to know what's really going on. But yeah, I mean, The Ocean, it sounded pretty good. It was a good record. It had lots of good riffs. It kind of reminded me of, and some people aren't going to like this comment, but like a lazy Between the Buried and Me. I thought that Between the Buried and Me is a better version of this band. Although this band is good, and I can see why a lot of people like it. It's very atmospheric, and I'm just not into the atmospheric stuff. It's never been for me. Like doom metal, I couldn't even list a doom metal band I enjoy, to be perfectly honest with you. That's why there's almost no doom metal on this list, because I'm not a doom metal fan. I'm just not. I like Sabbath, and then I like sludge, but doom, which is kind of in between, I don't like. I'm not a big fan. Other albums to mention here, I'll run through these just real fast. I'm not going to go through why they didn't make the list. I have Irreversible Mechanism, Immersion, Augury, Elusive Golden Age, Persephone, in Lak Ek, I don't know what the fuck that means, and then Kalama Palo. So those are the albums that didn't make the list. I thought they were all good albums. You know, I thought that listening to them was great. Oh, one more, All That Remains, Victim of the New Disease. That one surprised me because I was not expecting it to be half as heavy as it was. It kind of surprised me. There was some pop songs on it, which is All That Remains is kind of like forte nowadays. But it also had a little bit of a return to the heavier side of All That Remains, which I liked. Anyways, guys, thanks for staying tuned and listening to this long-ass fucking video. Enjoy any future content that I put out. Please subscribe. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.